Hey, what's up, fantasy football fans? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk, and we're through week 7 of the fantasy season. It's been a lot of things established so far. We're seeing who the teams are in your leagues that are the superior teams, and you're getting a sense of the teams that are getting pretty much out of contention. And more importantly, we're getting a good sense of the players and who they are or who they're not going in. We've got some injury clarity. We've got some people that's going to be coming back from injury soon. But more importantly, anything in terms of this video is we're now starting to see the waiver wire getting increasingly thin going forward. At this point, you're not going to really have the people pop off the waiver wire because of opportunity, so to speak, meaning they're giving someone this new chance that's going to come out of nowhere. Just about everything from this moment forward is going to be based on somebody got hurt, next man up. So for as long as football gets played and people get injured, there's going to be people that pop off the waiver because of that. But you won't see a whole bunch of shifting the guard to this new running back to give them a chance, unless it's a situation like the Rams where it just came out of nowhere. We still don't know what's up with the Zach Stacy thing, but a lot of all changes going from here forward is going to be mostly injury related. But another one of the observations that I've noticed more than anything else in fantasy is, with the exception of the quarterback position, the top drafted player in every position in fantasy has been a disappointment for one reason or the other, most of which is injury. But still, let's look at this. Adrian Peterson played one game, and you know why. He was a consensus #1 running back. Calvin Johnson, besides this injury, he's had one good game, and that was week 1. Consensus #1 wide receiver. Jimmy Graham, consensus #1 tight end. Besides his injury, he's really only had one good game, and his second best game was 12 points. You expect a lot more from Jimmy Graham. But again, it's injury related, but still, this is just based on facts. The Seattle defense, and you know how I feel about defense. And my fantasy success in terms of defense, as I've always said, is breaking even and making the 10 points you start with. They've only broken even one time this entire season with a total of 26 points. That's horrid. And last but not least, Matt Prater, the people that I saw, the player rather, that I saw people bidding $10 and such in auctions for. Do I even need to say anything about him? It's just been a weird season so far. And there's this, the whole thing about this theory that I'm bringing up is to say one of the things I said in videos when I first started my channel a few months back. I have no problem with going quarterback first in drafts, especially when it's somebody like next year, Manning or Luck. If you take them #1, I'm not absolutely averse to that. I'm not against it. It's a situation where we do know that quarterbacks get the most points in fantasy, but it's all based on value-based drafting when you determine should you get them. But points are points, and these guys are dependable week in and week out. These running backs are sometimes and then not so. We've seen that with LaShawn McCoy, Jamal Charles, across the board in a lot of senses. So, but these quarterbacks, the Lucks and the Peyton Mannings of the world, they're always doing what they're doing. So it's something to consider next year. But I digress. We're going to get right into week 8's pickups. The #1 pickup of the week, he has been in the list numerous times, but he's still only 12% owned, and that's Jerick McKinnon. He had 19 carries with 103 yards. It's clear and present danger at this point. There's no more guessing. There's no more asking. There's no more debate of who is running the show in the Vikings. And you got to think of it too. The Vikings are an offense that's set up, predicated, and built on establishing the run. No, McKinnon isn't Adrian Peterson, but they have a system built for a strong running back, and he is that. This is going to continue to flourish. Just count on it. And him being 12% owned, I don't know what it is everybody's seeing out there, but he needs to be owned across the board. And this week, this is the last time I'm going to mention him. So go get Jerick McKinnon. A lot of y'all have running back issues. There isn't a player in fantasy, a team in fantasy that can't afford a better running back. And Jerick McKinnon will be the first one that you need to target. And if he's 12% owned, that means it's a strong chance he's out there in your league. So make sure you pick him up. Number 2 is Odell Beckham Jr., 20% owned. This week he had 4 catches for 34 yards, 2 touchdowns on 7 targets. First things first, it's evident that Eli Manning needs him, and he intends on using him, even in the red zone. We were talking about that it would be Larry Donnell or Ruben Randall in the red zone packages, and Odell Beckham will mostly be taking slot work. I think they're going to be targeting them all 3, and it helps the value of Randall and Donnell when they're using them all spread like that. But Odell Beckham's going to get a lot of targets and going to get a lot of work in an offense that wants to throw. After this week, he should be fully owned. When you get 2 touchdowns in what I consider your real debut, you can't ignore that. That's the second most valuable person to get this week. Number 3, Ronnie Hillman, 12% owned, had 14 carries for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns, and caught all 4 of his targets for 29 yards. It's arguable among some that Ronnie Hillman should supplant even Jerick McKinnon as the number 1 pickup. But to me, the only reason I argue against that, well, I like McKinnon better. It's not the only reason, but one argument I really have is I've seen Hillman before. He can make mistakes, he can be lumbering, and he can be underachieving. I think he's in a system that's clear and set up for success for any skill position, running backs and receivers. And and I don't think Monty Ball is competition anymore. I think he won the job this weekend. So he's a great pickup, but he's just less talented than McKinnon. That's why I say it. But he should definitely be 100% owned after this week, and I believe he will be in that high-powered offense. Number 4, Tre Mason with 2% ownership. 18 carries, 85 yards for 1. For all this asking, is Zach Stacy going to have any more of a role in the offense? It doesn't matter what role he has, you can drop him. Because the signs were clear even in the beginning of the preseason that they were starting to question this whole Zach Stacy thing, and it was making all of us who drafted him in the late 2nd or early 3rd or even mid-2nd round, what is this? What's happening? What is he doing wrong to have these questions come up? And we thought it was going to be Benny Cunningham who was going to take it over. But it's looking like they went to more of a platoon thing, and they're phasing the starter at the beginning of the season completely out of the platoon. And who's left is Cunningham and Mason, and Mason is much more talented. Zach Stacy, 100% droppable. Cut him. And if you're going to pick up a Rams running back, which isn't a bad idea because Mason has shown what his talent is. I mean, when you get 18 for 85 and a touchdown and one of your, basically, like I say, you're one of your first feature, that says all it needs. But don't expect this to be full on his job because he and Cunningham are going to be splitting carries. And that's what I really think is going to be happening this part forward. And it's going to be mostly Al Fisher giving the eyeball test to who's really the best of these two. Like I said, I think Stacy's phased out. So in my opinion, this is Mason's job to lose. But with that said, Cunningham is going to have a role. But if you want to take one, get Mason, and he's 2% on, so he should be a top pickup this week. Number 5, Doug Baldwin, 19% ownership, 7 for 123, a touchdown, and more importantly, 11 targets. a lot of people may be looking at this as coming out of nowhere, but anyone who's played fantasy seen this before. We saw this last year at about the exact same time as it happened this year, around the middle, week 6, 7, whatever have you. He came on at about the same time, and he became a must start among fantasy, a must own rather, among fantasy owners last year, because Wilson had developed a defined rapport with him. And it's looking like with Harvin gone, it's back to what we had saw last year. Russell Wilson has really got his bearings in order, and he is proven to be a true passer now. And Baldwin is going to be the prime beneficiary of it. Curse isn't going to take it enough from him to supplant anything. Doug Baldwin, to me, I would rather have him rather than several of these receiver pickups that have been grabbed recently. Anyone from say, y'all might question this, but I kind of would rather have Doug Baldwin than Mohamed Sanu right now. I definitely would rather have him than Andre Holmes or James Jones, but the Sanu thing, I don't know. I give it one more week, but when we see what this is, he didn't do good last week, but let's see what he does this week. But me personally, I'm really thinking I'd rather have Baldwin than Sanu at this point going forward. But either way, this guy needs to be grabbed and owned in several leagues because the opportunity is going to be there. You can trust that. Number 6, Denard Robinson. He's 0.5% owned, 22 carries, 127 yards, 1 touchdown. This is a reasonable pickup, but I don't trust it. One, because they're going to try to do their best to squeeze lemonade out of Toby Gerhart somehow, some way, because of this whole thing that they wanted to dedicate to him being a feature back. He isn't one, and we all know that, but I believe they're going to try to squeeze it out of him as soon as he's healthy enough to get on the field. So that dents any production that Robinson could have. 2, Robinson is small and very injury prone, and he isn't the body of an NFL running back. I think he'll wear down. I don't see this being a long-term answer. But right now, with the Jags' lowly offense, they're going to try to see what they have out of everybody. And it looks like Denard will be the first beneficiary of this. So right now, all of us are deficient somewhere, and a lot of us are deficient at running back. So you could do worse than picking him up, but don't expect this big explosion out of him like you did this past weekend every week. It's just not going to happen, but he's a reasonable pickup. Number 7, Dwayne Allen, 28% owned, 3 for 52 yards with 1 touchdown and 6 targets. I've been saying this for the past few weeks. He's a highly targeted tight end being fed by the best quarterback in the game right now. I don't see it changing. Tight ends is hard to trust, period. And for his activity and his propensity to get touchdowns, he's third in the league among tight ends with 5. This makes it he's an easy top 8, maybe even top 5 tight end among them right now. He needs to be owned, and he's definitely a threat for a touchdown every week. Number 8, Ryan Tannehill, 13% owned. Quarterback right now isn't really even all that injured a position. Right now, it's a lot of them just aren't performing. Drew Brees is killing us right now. I mean, I don't know what to equate it to. Matt Ryan is killing us right now. This is strange. But you've got a player like Ryan Tannehill who's been averaging 20 points over the past 3 starts. And a lot of quarterbacks aren't doing that. I mean, that's steady. And I think you can attribute this to his finally developing a clear rapport with Mike Wallace this year. That's why Mike Wallace is looking so good. I think he would be, right now, if you dropped Matt Ryan for Tannehill, especially in the matchup this week, totally understandable to me. If you were to drop him, Matt Ryan's not going to be going anywhere. He'll be right back out there to pick up if you needed to get him again for the most part. So I would definitely consider starting him in particularly this week. So If you got quarterback deficiencies, which a lot of us have, grab Ryan Tannehill. It won't be a mistake. It's looking like he's truly developing. Number 9, and I have big questions about this, but it's a mix between Bryce Brown, who's 1% owned, and Anthony Dixon, who's 0.2% owned. Dixon was the one who got the work this past weekend with 13 rushes for 51 and 3 and 15 receiving yards on 4 targets. Tread carefully with this, guys. The Buffalo running game wasn't good with the starters because they got a terrible offensive line and they've got terrible offensive movement, period. Tread carefully with this. I tell you, I don't even really know if I would take the plunge on getting either one. But right now, it's about grabbing a home run hitter who may be able to do something. Anthony Dixon would be the one of the two that I would grab. Bryce Brown has more experience and has had a feature role to spell certain times in Philadelphia, but Anthony Dixon would be the one I would grab, and it's primarily and strictly based on this one past week's performance. So I don't see this Bills thing being too promising, but if you're gonna grab one, grab Anthony Dixon or grab none this week and watch and see what happens. That's what I would do if I were you guys. Pass on any one of them this week and watch and see what happens, what comes to the light, what bubbles up, and grab that one. But they're both worth keeping your eye on. And if you're really, really desperate for a running back, grab Anthony Dixon first and see what happens. And number 10, this is going to be, I won't lie, I won't say it will be my last time saying it, but it's getting close to it because it's going to be close to your last time being able to own him. Josh Gordon. Listen, y'all, every week his value gets higher and higher and higher and higher because he's one game closer to being able to get on the field as it increases. For all you teams that are 3-4 or worse records, this doesn't apply to you. For everyone who's 4-3 or better, this applies to you because you're getting to the point to where you're edging towards the playoffs and you'll need a number 1 receiver. Now, we don't know how his physical, how good a shape he'll be in, where he's connected with Hoyer or whatever is going to look, but this is a number 1 receiver. And to add a number 1 receiver with fresh legs straight off the waiver wire into your lineups for the playoffs, that's exactly what you want. It can make and break your playoffs. It can win you matchups. Now's the time to grab and stash him. Again, any of you who are 3-1 or 4-3 or better, you need to own Josh Gordon. You need to be grabbing for him tonight to be able to own him going forward. I don't know how to stress it anymore. Stash and go. This is a number 1 receiver that you're stashing for this. And a couple of honorable mentions out. Larry Donnell is 50% owned. And like I've been saying, his value is going to remain constant, being that they've incorporated the new blood going into the receiving core, and Eli's going to want to throw the ball, and Donnell's a big target. And another honorable mention is Allen Robinson, 1% owned, 4 for 60 with a touchdown on 7 targets. He's top 25 this year in targets, so that's just good. And it looks like Blake Bortles really likes using him. So that's another guy to consider if you got some receiver deficiencies. And I just want to touch on one thing before I end this video, this completely different topic. A lot of people, this week, I probably answered more start-sit questions than I have the entire season thus far combined. This past weekend I did. And a lot of the questions are, first of all of them, there's never a bad sit-start question. I'm pleased and thrilled to help anyone that I can and answer any questions I can when you have them. But I want to help y'all make things a little bit easier for yourselves to where if you've got to decide for yourself or don't want to ask or can't ask somebody, it's going to help you. when you're asking sit-start questions and you're pitting one player against another player, this is the hierarchy in determining who to start. First, talent. Second, health. And third, matchup. Some people were sending me questions like, and I'll use one example in particular. Is it crazy to bench Drew Brees for Brian Hoyer this week because Brian Hoyer had that seemingly easy matchup? And my answer was yes, it is crazy because Drew Brees' talent runs circles around Brian Hoyer. And talent, I'm not even going to talk about the second one, which is health. Talent is going to supplant matchup every time. Talent is the reason you draft the people you draft, and that's what you're banking on. And when you go talent first, if you were to play Brian Hoyer and he was to beat Drew Brees, you live with that. You just know you made the smart decision, the logical decision. You live with that. Give a salute to Brian Hoyer for that. But if you play Brian Hoyer and what is supposed to happen happens, and Drew Brees wins the matchup, you'll be wanting to slap yourself because you tried to be fancy. That's just crazy. You just don't do it. Matchup is based on one thing. When you have even talent, if you've got a talent person like Brian Hoyer and say Austin Davis, and you want to see who should I start between those two, pick the one with the best matchup then. If you've got Andrew Luck and you've got Peyton Manning, pick the best matchup then. But don't put the talent person with the lowly talent person and look at matchup. Matchup is third. Talent first, period. So, and again, this is just my opinion based on years of playing, years of observation, and years of having seen these things and test these things myself to try to get fancy, or as Matthew Berry says, trying to get cute and it not working. So if you don't have, feel free to ask me anytime that you need start-sit questions or advice. But if you don't have anyone that you can ask, or you're in a pinch or in a situation where you need to do something now, talent first. Don't be fancy. So yeah, that concludes this week's video, and I hope you guys are doing well in your leagues. I'm hoping everything is looking more promising for you. And if you've had trouble or are out of contention, I hope you're learning well, no one's really out of contention at this point, but I hope you're learning something as you go, learning the system if this is your first time. I'm getting a lot of comments from first timers saying, wow, I learn something new every day. You're helping with this, you're helping with that, you're giving me a new way to see things. And that's what this is all about. This is about fun. This is about learning the system and how it works, and learning that this ain't like basic and regular gambling where a lot of the system stays the same. And like if you play roulette wheel, the roulette wheel is going to run at the same speed. It's going to be the same, made of the same material, the same ball dropping, but then it's based on luck after that. Football, every variable is fluctuating. Does the player have a headache today? Is he in a bad mood? Is the field wet? Is the conditions good? Is the quarterback got a stomach ache? And everything affects it. Then you're basing it on talent. There's nothing that's definite in fantasy football because it's based on real life players and real life people more than anything else. That's why you got to play talent first and play the odds and logic first. So if you got any questions, feel free to follow me at FF Real Talk. As always, you can ask comments down below and I'll try to get to them. I'm much more easy to reach on Twitter. So again, at FF Real Talk, add me, ask me anything, and I'll get back to you as fast as I can. And good luck in week 8, and I hope everything goes well. Y'all have a good one.